Welcome to the deep dive. So, back in 1769, there was this civil servant in the Habsburg Empire.
Right, the guy who built the chess machine.
Exactly. He built this massive wooden machine that famously beat Benjamin Franklin at a game of chess. People called it the Mechanical Turk.
Which is such a great story.
It is. I mean, people all over the world were terrified of it because it seemed like this clockwork automation actually had a mind of its own.
But it was a complete illusion.
Total illusion. There were no magic gears deciding the next move. Hidden inside that cramped wooden cabinet was just a human chess expert.
Right, sitting in the dark with a candle.
Yeah, just pulling levers and operating the mannequin with magnets. And the thing is, today, when you open up Spotify or Netflix, you are dealing with the exact same illusion.
Absolutely. Because we look at our screens and, we imagine this omniscient, magical, artificial intelligence that just objectively understands our deepest desires.
But it's not magic.
Not at all. Algorithms are simply mathematical equations designed by human engineers. Just like that human hidden in the chess cabinet, human biases, commercial imperatives, and corporate goals are hiding right behind the illusion of an objective machine.
Right. And our mission today is to uncover how those invisible forces are actively shaping your personal taste.
Because it really affects everyone.
It does. Are the songs you listen to, the movies you queue up, or, the cafes you seek out when you travel actually your choice? Or are you just following a script written by a machine optimizing for corporate revenue?
That is the big question.
And we are exploring all of this through Kyle Chayka's incredibly insightful book, Filterworld: How Algorithms Flattened Culture. Okay, let's unpack this. How exactly do these formulas manipulate our daily digital habits when we just want to, listen to some music or watch a show?
Well, let's look under the hood. At a foundational level, an algorithm takes your deeply qualitative human feelings,
Like your joy or your boredom.
right, your preferences, and it converts them into a quantitative metric called a signal. So if you replay a song, that's a positive signal. If you hit skip, that's a negative signal.
Simple enough.
But the crucial shift in understanding here is that the system's primary goal is not to find you genuinely good art.
Because quality is subjective.
Exactly. The ultimate goal is just to maximize engagement. They want to keep you scrolling on the platform for as long as possible so they can serve you more advertisements.
See, I struggle with that engagement over quality argument, though. I mean, if a streaming platform feeds me terrible content, I'm going to cancel my subscription, right?
You think so, yeah?
If a music app plays annoying songs, I close the app. So mathematically, shouldn't their profit incentive perfectly align with finding me genuinely good art?
You would naturally think so, but the math doesn't actually measure good. It measures tolerable. Yeah. And to understand how they achieve that, we have to look at how they maintain the illusion of bespoke personalization. What's fascinating here is how these platforms use techniques like collaborative filtering.
Collaborative filtering, meaning what exactly?
It gives you the appearance of customization without actually delivering a uniquely diverse experience. I mean, they aren't looking into your soul. They are mapping your behavior on a massive grid and grouping you with millions of lookalike users.
Okay, so putting me in a bucket with people who click similar things.
Right. And Chayka highlights a revealing experiment regarding Netflix and the Fast and Furious franchise to show how this works.
Oh, I remember this from the source.
Yeah, a user set up a completely random control account with zero history of watching action movies. Yet that blank slate account was still heavily recommended all 8 Fast and Furious films on its homepage.
But wait, if the account has zero history indicating a preference for car chases, why push Vin Diesel so aggressively?
Because Netflix paid a massive licensing fee for those movies. The overarching algorithm just defaults to pushing content with a historically high likelihood of keeping any average user on the platform.
So it's just pushing mass market stuff regardless.
Yes, but to make it look like a personalized recommendation, they utilize incredibly sophisticated A/B testing on the thumbnails.
Oh, wow.
The system looks at your vector data. So if your viewing history leans towards romantic comedies, the algorithm isolates a single frame from a Fast and Furious movie showing 2 characters kissing.
And it serves you that specific image.
Exactly. And if your vector data shows you watch comedies, it serves you a funny outtake frame.
That is wild. It's soft coercion.
It really is. They dress up the exact same mass market product in different packaging to trick your specific behavioral vector into clicking.
They're essentially wrapping a generic hamburger in a shiny wrapper tailored specifically to your psychological weaknesses.
That's a great way to put it.
And this dynamic, I mean, it fundamentally alters the music industry, too. Let's look at the indie band Galaxy 500.
Oh, yeah, the Spotify example.
Right, so they were this lo-fi, highly introverted intellectual punk band that broke up in 1991. But then in 2017, their drummer noticed a bizarre anomaly. A single track of theirs, a 1989 song called Strange, suddenly exploded on Spotify.
Just out of nowhere.
Completely out of nowhere. It diverged entirely from the rest of their catalog, racking up millions and millions of plays.
And this wasn't tied to any external cultural moment. Like,
Yeah.
there was no viral dance trend or movie soundtrack placement driving those numbers.
Nothing at all. The band was completely inactive. But 2017 was the exact year Spotify made autoplay the default option on their app.
Ah, right.
When an album ended, the algorithm just kept feeding users related music based on predictive math. And to the band, the song Strange was actually a joke. They called it their heavy metal ballad.
A heavy metal ballad from a lo-fi punk band.
Exactly. It had a regular backbeat, no long guitar solos, and clocked in at exactly 3 minutes and 19 seconds. It sounds like a perfectly generic, mid-tempo 80s track.
See, the algorithm doesn't process irony or indie punk context. It just analyzes the raw audio file.
Like a tempo and stuff?
Yeah, the tempo, the frequency of the beat, the sonic texture. It recognized a completely inoffensive track. And more importantly, when the machine slid that song into millions of autoplay cues, users didn't hit the skip button.
Because it wasn't annoying enough to skip.
Right. Because the song was unobtrusive, it simply faded into the background. In the algorithmic logic, the absence of a negative signal, like a non-skip, is registered as positive engagement.
It's the musical equivalent of beige wallpaper.
Exactly. Beige wallpaper.
And that lack of friction earned the band thousands of dollars in royalties. They out-earned the rest of their entire catalog simply because the song was tolerated rather than loved.
Which is kind of depressing for artists.
It is. And it makes sense that digital platforms favor this beige ambient stream bait to keep us passively hooked. But what terrifies me is that this math doesn't stay trapped inside our phones.
No, it bleeds out.
It does. Because we use algorithmic apps like Yelp and Instagram to navigate the physical world, that same beige audio equation is actively rewriting the architecture of our physical cities.
It creates a phenomenon of algorithmic globalization.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about the last independent coffee shop you visited.
Okay.
Whether you are traveling to Kyoto, Berlin, Los Angeles, or Brooklyn, you have likely encountered what Chayka identifies as the generic coffee shop.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Right. You know the exact aesthetic. White subway tiles, reclaimed wood tables.
Industrial mid-century modern chairs.
Yes. And hanging Edison bulbs. Why does a cafe in Beijing look indistinguishable from a cafe in Reykjavik?
Because physical spaces are now optimizing for the digital feed. The survival of a brick-and-mortar business depends heavily on ranking high on discovery platforms.
Like Yelp or Instagram.
Exactly. And to achieve that ranking, owners adopt the aesthetics that perform best algorithmically. Visuals that look clean in a square photo, light well on a smartphone camera, and just don't offend anyone's visual sensibilities.
So if a cafe has moody, dark lighting, it doesn't get photographed.
And if it doesn't get photographed, the algorithm buries it, and the business fails. Our physical environments are being globally harmonized to please the data sets of a handful of tech companies.
They are monetizing predictability.
Precisely. If they can keep you in a state of docile consumption, feeding you average content or directing you to universally agreeable physical spaces, they capture your attention.
And that predictable attention is the product they sell to advertisers.
Right.
We've basically traded surprise for total predictability. There is this incredible analogy in the source material from a 1980 Japanese novel called Somehow Crystal.
Oh, the radio dial analogy.
Yeah. The author is capturing the hyper-consumerist environment of Tokyo, and the book opens with the main character turning on her stereo. She pushes a preset button to jump instantly to a rock station.
Just a single button press.
Right. And the author includes a footnote contrasting the technology of that preset button with the older analog method of manually turning a dial.
Where you have to actually search for a station.
Yeah. Exactly. When you turn a physical dial, you have to navigate through the static. You wiggle the knob back and forth, catching snippets of weird broadcasts until you lock onto a signal.
You hear all the mess in between.
Yeah. The author notes that with the preset button, you lose what he calls a little bit of the maniac fun of manual tuning.
That concept of maniac fun perfectly encapsulates the pre-digital discovery process. I mean, the static wasn't a flaw, it was the entire point.
Is where the surprise was.
Yes. It was the necessary friction required to discover something surprising, bizarre, or genuinely challenging. Today's culture is entirely made of presets.
Everything is pre-selected for us.
The established patterns are repeated infinitely, and the algorithm has engineered the static completely out of existence.
Yeah.
We are losing the serendipity and originality that comes from stumbling around in the dark.
And the absolute endpoint of this frictionless ambient culture is the funk band Wolfpack.
Oh, the Sleepify album.
Yes. In 2014, they uploaded an album to Spotify called Sleepify. It was an album of literal silence.
Just pure silence.
Just tracks of nothing, engineered to be exactly 30 seconds long. Because that was the minimum duration Spotify required to register a monetized stream.
Such a clever loophole.
It was. They told their fans to stream it on a loop while they slept to fund the band's upcoming tour. Because the tracks were silent, they demanded zero attention.
The ultimate background music.
The band generated $20,000 in royalties before the platform caught on and pulled it down. Silence is the ultimate stream bait. It is the perfect, frictionless product.
But we really have to consider the downstream effects of this system on the people actually producing the culture.
Right. The artists themselves?
If consumers are being fed a continuous diet of average ambient stream bait, what happens to the human creativity of the artists forced to survive in this ecosystem?
It has to change them.
It does. The constant pressure to conform to algorithmic metrics profoundly alters the creative process itself.
The deep dive sources highlight the story of illustrator Hallie Bateman to illustrate this exact trap.
Yeah, her story is so telling.
She developed a very quirky, distinct, and highly personal artistic style. But as she tried to build a sustainable career on platforms like Twitter and Instagram, she found herself unconsciously adapting her work.
Changing it to fit the feed.
Right. The platforms overwhelmingly favored smooth, pastel-colored graphics and easily digestible inspirational quotes. And the second-by-second feedback loop of likes and retweets was inexorably rewiring her brain.
The metrics become the reward.
Exactly. She realized that she was no longer introspective. The algorithm was denaturing her creativity to the point where she felt her actual voice was being destroyed.
That is so sad.
She had to consciously pull back and stop making art for the platforms just to protect her own humanity.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Bateman's experience is a micro-level warning about a macro-level crisis. Writer Paul Scalis coined the term stuck culture to describe this phenomenon.
Stuck culture. Because we're just repeating the same things.
Exactly. Because algorithms rely on historical data, they're optimizing solely for what has already generated engagement in the past. They inherently limit future creativity.
Because they can't predict what's genuinely new.
Right. True artistic innovation does not emerge from optimizing a historical metric. It requires a dramatic, unpredictable leap into the unknown.
And the algorithms punish those leaps.
They do, because those leaps don't map onto past engagement models, so culture stagnates. We end up with an endless regurgitation of existing intellectual property.
Like 10 more superhero sequels instead of a weird, risky narrative that might define a new generation.
Exactly. And this brings us to a massive debate surrounding the structure of these platforms. In the pre-digital era, cultural gatekeepers like librarians, museum curators, or even independent record store owners possessed a sense of curatorial responsibility.
They had a point of view.
Right. They intentionally sought to challenge audiences or broaden their horizons. Tech monopolies, however, have built global distribution systems with zero curatorial mandates.
The objective is purely scale and profit.
And because there is no human oversight evaluating the underlying math, these algorithms automate and amplify historical biases at a frightening scale.
Which is really concerning.
Very.
Yeah.
We could look at the experiment conducted by country music artist Martina McBride to see the mechanics of this in action.
Oh, the Spotify playlist experiment.
Yeah, she wanted to test Spotify's automated recommendation feature, so she started building a playlist based around country music. The algorithm served her a list of recommended songs by male artists 14 consecutive times.
Wait, really? 14 times in a row just by default?
Yes. She had to continuously hit refresh before the machine suggested a single female musician. And this was further verified by researcher Jada Watson.
What did she find?
She replicated the experiment and found that out of 200 refreshed song recommendations, only 6 were by women.
Oh, wow. Only 6 out of 200.
And it's crucial to understand why this happens. The algorithm wasn't analyzing McBride's personal listening habits. It was reacting to the genre tag of country music.
So it's looking at the history of the whole genre.
Right. The math weights historical radio play data to predict future engagement. Because country radio has been heavily skewed toward male artists for decades, the algorithm's math equates the entire genre almost exclusively with men.
So it's just repeating past imbalances.
Exactly. The underlying equation is not a neutral, objective judge of quality. It is built on flawed historical data, creating a self-fulfilling feedback loop that enforces those biases without any human editor stepping in to correct the imbalance.
It's incredibly frustrating when you realize the sheer scale of the manipulation. So knowing that the system is engineered to flatten culture, constrain artists, trap us in a predictable bubble, and enforce historical biases, how do we actually get out?
That is the ultimate challenge.
How do we rebuild our own genuine identity and taste in this environment?
This raises an important question about our fundamental relationship with art and media. To break the cycle, we have to recognize the profound difference between passive renting and active collecting.
Renting versus collecting.
Yeah. Chayka draws upon the philosopher Walter Benjamin, who wrote a famous essay in 1931 about his physical book library.
Oh, I love this part.
Benjamin argued that collecting books was not merely about reading, it was about constructing a personal worldview. The physical objects you carefully selected and organized on a shelf were a tangible monument to yourself.
Because you chose them.
Right. When you acquire a book or a record, you make a conscious, active decision to bring it into your life. In contrast, the modern digital streaming model means we own absolutely nothing.
We're just renting access.
Exactly. We're merely renting access to a massive, undifferentiated trough of content managed by a tech monopoly.
That shift from collecting to renting hits so close to home. Think back to the era of the teenage CD binder.
Oh man, these huge zipper cases.
Yes, it was this thick, heavy-duty fabric case with rubberized edges and those plastic sleeves. People spent hours meticulously organizing them.
Oh, totally.
Every single CD in that binder was a deliberate codification of personal taste. If you slotted a harsh punk album right next to a smooth jazz record, that was a statement about your complex identity. It meant something.
It was who you were.
Exactly. Today, a carefully curated Spotify playlist can vanish in an instant if the company loses a licensing dispute. The entire user interface can shift overnight because corporate wants to prioritize algorithmic podcasts over music to boost their quarterly revenue.
You're at their mercy.
You really are. You cannot build a monument to yourself on rented ground that is constantly shifting beneath your feet. When you build a physical collection, you are curating your identity. When you rely on an algorithm, you are letting a corporation curate your identity to optimize their server costs.
That is the precise distinction. So what can you, the listener, do to escape this algorithmic avalanche?
Give us some tips.
First, simply looking under the hood is a powerful tool. Remember the mechanical Turk we talked about?
Dispelling the magic.
Exactly. Dispelling the magic significantly reduces the anxiety. Once you recognize that a recommendation isn't a magical, omniscient reading of your soul, but just a mathematical attempt to extract your attention based on lookalike user data, it loses its authority over you.
Okay, so we demystify the math, but what about practical daily habits?
Stop relying on the homepage.
Just ignore it.
Yeah. Do not let the Netflix autoplay feature or the TikTok For You page dictate your consumption. Those interfaces are specifically designed to induce passivity. You must actively decide what you are looking for before you even open the application.
Go in with a plan.
Right. And most importantly, you need to deliberately seek out friction.
Friction. Reintroducing the static on the radio dial.
Exactly. The algorithm is allergic to friction. Its entire purpose is to make consumption smooth and frictionless. To fight back, you must seek out art that is confrontational, uncomfortable, or entirely outside your established vector data.
Like reading a book that isn't on a bestseller list.
Or listening to an album from a genre you have never explored. You have to reintroduce the static if you want to find that maniac fun again.
So what does this all mean? It means that while these digital platforms offer us an unprecedented level of convenience, we are paying a very steep, invisible price for it.
A huge price.
We are trading away our individuality, our quirks, and our capacity for serendipitous discovery in exchange for a culture of flatness.
We're just settling.
We are. We are settling for average ambient consumption because it demands nothing of us. But your taste is what makes you uniquely human. It is the culmination of your life experiences, your complex moods, your specific perspective on the world. Handing that identity over to a Silicon Valley equation is a tragedy.
It is a profound loss of self. And I'll leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay.
The next time you pull your phone out of your pocket, open a streaming app and mindlessly click on the very first recommendation that pops up on your screen. I want you to pause.
Just stop for a second.
Right. Ask yourself, are you actually expressing your own unique human taste in this moment? Or are you simply performing free outsourced labor to help train a machine?
Wow.
The challenge for you today is to go out and find one piece of art, one song, one book entirely on your own. No digital prompts, no algorithmic assistance.
Leave the Mechanical Turk in its cabinet?
Exactly. Leave it in the cabinet and go find something that is wonderfully, terribly, beautifully human.